Hello, it's May 6, 2013. This is Richard Pawson, and this is the monthly update of our climate video. I'm going to keep it a little on the short side this time because we're also going to put it out on some of our public sites such as YouTube. Okay, we're looking at Orlando Precipitation Index. We simply take the temperature and compare it to an average and find out if it's above or below and add or subtract it to the previous index number. What we can see for Orlando precipitation is that there's a 3-year cycle in terms of a peak of precipitation. How much rain have you received? How high the number of inches. And likewise, on the flip side of this is a 3-year cycle low. This chart isn't quite complete. This is just something that I keep track of for fun here in Florida. I'm going to switch in a moment to Chicago, which kind of represents the Corn Belt, and something more important. You'll find we kind of overdo it with all the labels. But at any rate, look at this intense trend of less precipitation. And what I've learned is if we take out to 2004, 2005 hurricanes, there's a good chance Florida's been in a dry trend since the late 1990s. But at any rate, the 3-year cycle is due for recovery, but the point is it can stay down all the way to 2014 for the latest year for a bottom, and I would tend to think it'd be during the first half of 2014. And it is due for a little blip up for an increase in precipitation. Now the interesting thing is on the temperature side, and I don't know why this chart has very few updates, but a 3-year cycle top in temperature, meaning the highest number of above normal, hottest I guess is a good point to make, it peaked in 2009 for a 3-year cycle and declined for a 3-year cycle going into 2011. It then rallied to 2012, warmer. So when the trend's up, it's warmer than normal. When the trend's down, it's cooler than normal. If it's sideways, it's normal. Now look at what occurred in 2012. Temperature should have then declined all the way into 2013. Instead, it moved sideways as if nature was saying, I don't want to prove you right, Rich Pawson. I don't want the cycle to work. And yet it couldn't go up. It couldn't make it hotter, but at least it could say, not going to let you get away with cooler. And I've seen this in prices. I've always said that you can fool with the free market's mind if you could just get all the people on the supply side when they have a large supply to just refuse to sell and wait long enough. Pretty soon the cycle is going to flip and the demand is going to rise, and they're going to find out they then have less downside potential. They can sell their product at average to higher prices rather than lower prices. And of course it works on the inverse. Well, it's like nature was playing the same game. It was just saying, I'll at least give you a resting period. We'll just go back to normal temperatures. One last little blip down to help you feel like you're right. And then look at this, a new high. And it's too late. This would make a 5-year cycle, which there is such a thing. It runs 5 to 7 years. But that means you have to combine 2 3-year cycles. And the best that we can come up with is that the 3-year cycle is in 2012, not 2011, so it's very unlikely it can top now. I would say there's high probability. I haven't quantified this. I don't know what to pick for a number, but I would say there's high probability of a warming trend now into 2014 for temperatures, at least in Orlando, if not Florida, if not the Southeast. Rather fascinating. Now, when we move to temperature of Chicago, we have the same index going back to 2003. Look at this aggressive trend. In my opinion, this was far more aggressive than in Florida. It's almost like Florida kind of chilled out a little, or cooled off a little bit in this global warming thing. But Chicago then finally caught up. It had been lagging for quite some time. It caught up. Look at these intense, above normal trends. Now, I realize this chart looks terribly cluttered up, and it is all our model signals, and we don't create second copy charts and all that stuff. We probably should to make it cleaner looking. We're trying to track L1 tops and bottoms just like we do for prices and 3-year cycles, and we even go larger. At any rate, we can see we had this 3-year cycle warming, then a cooling trend, and there's really just more or less normal and resting, and we actually caught the bottom of this with the model saying this is a very important bottom. Here comes global warming again, and away it went. And look at this trend from 2011 into 2012. No wonder that we had a drought. You know, it's just a intense, warmer than normal trend. Now, I want to zoom in a bit here. And there's a possibility that a 3-year cycle top has occurred and it will now get cooler for 2013. And I don't know how much cooler it will get, but at least for this spring, we've already got crop problems. So it's like it's flipped from being way too warm to now way too cool at the wrong time of year. But here's an interesting thing. The L1 cycle is ready to bottom now, but it could delay another 2 months. If it keeps getting cooler the next 2 months, we got crop problems. If it bottomed right here, right now, I say we still have less than trendline yield, but you can recover quite a bit for crops, that is, specifically corn. At any rate, at some point, as we look further out to summer to fall, we can see a blip up here. But what if that blip up went to an all-time new high? And it turns out this 3-year cycle top is really only the first opportunity. Indeed, it can remain warm in the Corn Belt above normal temperatures all the way to late 2013. It can last that long. So indeed, there could still be a hot, dry summer and some other complications. Now, let's move on to cycles of precipitation. And this is our precipitation chart. And you can see from 2006, it was just wetter, at least on the index now. It might have not been wetter every year after year after year. It was just above normal a certain amount, and we just keep adding, and that just keeps driving us higher, even though it really wasn't getting wetter and wetter. You just had more time being above normal for precipitation. At any rate, we think there's a 3-year cycle top, maybe even a 9-year cycle top, and this drives us down for the lower precipitation and coincides with our drought. But notice April, big spike up. We haven't seen a spike up like that since July of 2010. So big turnaround on this precipitation. Now, I want to make some comments on the super cycles, or at least a 9-year cycle anyways, the major long term. The warmest was to be over by 2015, and then when we combined it with all the other research we were doing, we said the latest for any kind of a serious crop problem, a serious weather problem is 2014. But we also said the earliest was 2010, and it turned out, yes, we started having crop problems in 2010. Okay? Once this warmest is over, we should see, if I can find my other note, we should see around 2011 to 2016 a turn towards being cool. And I think it could be all over by 2020, and so by 2020s, it should be warmer than normal again, back with the global warming. But Raymond Wheeler made a comment in his research that around 2015 to 25, expect a cool period, maybe a wet period, and so I would assume better crops. But he also made a comment that only fits in a 1,000-year global warming cycle to 2030s, 2040s, and I'm coming up with 2030s as far as my own research. So the point I want to make for all you global warming people or anti-global warming people, yes, we can see a cooling from now all the way to maybe into the early 2020s. But it will be broken up by moments of warmer than normal. And this all fits inside of a larger trend, so it's nothing more than a correction. And the point is, it may not get all that much cooler. I don't doubt we'll hear of some record cold temperatures. There's so many statistics, so much history of climate now, you can have record-setting statistics at any day. I don't doubt we're going to see greater blizzards and those kind of things going on, bigger snowstorms, and we'll say, gosh, you know, and how about the summer that had no winter, you know, and what are you global warming people doing? But the point is, it's really just going to be a correction inside of the global warming. Even inside of this intense warm-up in the last 5 or 10 years, we had some very cold periods of time. So this is going to be interesting. We are due for a change, and that would be more favorable later this decade for crops. But I'm concerned there's going to be greater volatility. As we study crops and weather, it seems like it's been easy the last 20 or 30 years to grow crops. And now, cyclically, it should become more difficult for the next 20 or 30 years. So we might be hoping and praying for a cooling period here, but we might turn out it's too cool and just creates more problems for us. An interesting concept. So let me break down the super cycles. Cycles go all the way to 100,000 years. They're all warming up to that level, but they can come to an end in the 2030s. At any rate, for 2013, it looks like we could possibly be beginning a cooling period, but there's still a chance for a hot, dry summer and a cool, wet spring. One last hot, dry summer. Thank you.